For Jimmy Hoffa.
That's right. 7 Action News investigator Heather Catallo has been on the scene all day long. Heather, what's the latest?
We'll take a look over here. You can see they are still working right here on Buell Road at Adams. The FBI has been out here since about 8 o'clock this morning. They're using a backhoe, shovels, and some other high-tech equipment. They're searching an area that's about 10 by 20 feet. They are hoping to find the remains of Jimmy Hoffa out here. Now, the former Teamsters president, as you know, vanished back in 1975 after heading to a meeting with some mafia members in Oakland Township. This land here used to belong to suspected Detroit crime boss Jack Tocco. A tip from an alleged mob leader, Anthony Zarelli, led them to this site. He is selling a manuscript, and in that manuscript, he says Hoffa was killed here at this property. Zarelli alleges Hoffa was buried underneath a cement slab in an old barn. That barn is no longer standing, but that's what you can see. That's the site where the barn was. That's where they're looking right over there. Now, this search is going to go at least until dark tonight, and of course, they're going to resume again tomorrow. At last check, they had not found what they were hoping to find, but everybody out here is hoping, of course, to finally bring some closure to the Hoffa family. Reporting live in Oakland Township, I'm Heather Catallo, 7 Action News.
All right, Heather, thank you. And let's check now with the former special agent in charge of the Detroit FBI office.
Dan Roberts is with us now to share really what is going on with today's events. Now, let's start with Tony Zarelli. He's the guy that came up with this, former mob leader that said that Hoffa was buried underneath this slab. Right. Is he credible?
Well, just based on that, he sounds credible because he has the background and the connections to the mob. He himself was in prison at the time of this, but he certainly had the connections to the mob at the time to know what was going on. But the FBI wouldn't act just on his information alone. They would have had to have some additional verification that what he was saying was true, like a polygraph. For
Dan,
example.
when you were in charge of the Milford dig that went on years back. You obviously thought you had credible information when that dig happened. So, you know, how do you weigh it, and how do you know, I guess?
Well, you have to put it in perspective. The FBI gets literally thousands of tips on the Hoffa case every year, and we pick out the best ones and we go forward on them. There's some that are obvious that you never want to follow up on, but tips like this where there's instant credibility by who's providing the information, you have to follow up on those for the family and to get closure to the case as well as for the family.
We have a poll going on at WXYZ.com, and the majority of those people say no, they don't think that Hoffa's remains will ever be found, and the others say this is all a waste of taxpayers' money. Why is the FBI continuing to follow up on these leads after he's been gone for 40-some years?
Well, I bet if you asked your viewers if it was somebody they cared about, one of their family members, that they'd want the FBI to follow up on every lead because it's a missing person. It's potentially a homicide victim, or at the very least a missing person, and the family doesn't have any closure. So the FBI does not pass judgment on who is missing or who is presumed dead. They have to follow up on all of these leads, and because this individual had some mob ties or some mob connections, the FBI constantly gets criticism or scrutiny over these things, but you really can't ignore them. You can't pass judgment on the victim.
We heard someone say earlier, an official, we don't do a cost-benefit analysis when we look at these things.
Right.
Let's talk about this area they're looking at, a 10 by 20 feet cement slab where a barn used to be. It wouldn't seem like it would take that long to look in that area. Can you give us an idea of the type of time frame that you're looking at when you're doing a search like this? Well,
it's interesting because that's about the size that we looked at in the Milford farm when we dug back in 2006, and we brought in all kinds of sophisticated equipment such as ground-penetrating radar, for example, and some other heavy equipment. We brought in some experts from Michigan State University to do some probing for us as well. So it doesn't seem like it should take a long time, but it actually does, because you want to be careful about what you're doing so that you don't mess up any of the evidence if there is anything there.
General question, do you think he'll eventually be found?
I hope so. I don't know the answer to that, but I certainly hope so, and I hope the FBI never gives up until he is found.